Hello, welcome back. We are going to go through the Appwich data project, and today we're going to go over part one. Hopefully this video will be able to help you get through the assignment and get a perfect score. So feel free to pause the video at any point in time to get you through. All right, so just to let you know, and I've already downloaded all of the information that I need from the Cengage website. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And of course, you should have the instructions available to you. And of course, you would have any kind of support files that would be included. So feel free to grab all those pieces of information and put together what you need in order to be able to be successful with this project. All right, let's get started. So one of the first things that we need to make sure of, and it is clearly stated in the instructions, is make sure that your name is located in the documentation sheet in cell B6. All right, and in this assignment, we can see in sheet 1, there is already an outline for the descriptive statistics. Now, in the instructions, there is quite a bit of information, and there is information about a support data file that is included with this. We're going to import that data file. So I am going to go to Data, Get Data, and in this particular case, this is going to be from a file, and it's going to be from a text CSV file. So once I select on that text CSV file, I'm going to go and find that particular assignment. So I happen to have this in my videos folder for today's video. And here is that file, support data transactions. I will select on it and hit import. Now there will be a dialog that will pop up. Let me make sure that we can see all this. What you want to make sure of is that this screen has the data that is in there, and it is basically the information that you would anticipate it to be. If there's any anomalies, you're going to want to make some edits. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and hit load, and it's going to load automatically into a new sheet. According to the instructions, we need to put that sheet as the last sheet in this workbook. Now, what we also want to do is rename this table to the transactions table. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. I'm going to show you an easy way to do it and be certain that it gets changed. And this might be a little contrary to some other information that you have. But to do this, I'm going to go to the Formulas tab. I'm going to go to Name Manager. And you can see in the Name Manager that we have an item here. And this is actually a table. And it is currently the only table that is in this workbook. I'm going to go to Edit. And I am just going to remove the prefix of that and select OK because we want to rename this as transactions, and then hit close. So now if I click on the table and come up to table design, we can see in the upper left hand side the table name is transactions. Now you might ask why I didn't change it from this view here, and the reason for that is sometimes you get duplicate names. It doesn't always happen, but it can happen. All right, the other thing we need to change the name of this worksheet, and we're going to change it simply to data transactions. So I double clicked on the worksheet name and then renamed it to data transactions. All right, that is project step number 1. Now let's go to project step number 2. We need to understand this data. So take a look at the data. You should be able to go all the way down to the bottom and see that it is roughly 3,000 records. Since this starts, I believe, at, let's see, ID 0, that is exactly 3,000 records. So it is quite a small data set from a perspective of what happens in a real business, but it's large enough where you can't always look at everything in order to find all of the missing pieces. So the first thing we want to do is we want to explore this date column here because the instructions tell us that there is a little bit of missing information. Now I could scroll down through this data set and look for all of the missing information. But what I'm going to do is something a little bit different. I'm going to go all the way back to the top And by the way, you notice there's these little hashtag views. That just means that the column is a little bit too narrow. And I'm just going to expand that out a little bit so we see that. So one little trick in Excel is to hold down your control button, keep it pressed down, and hit the down arrow in a column where you want to find the next blank cell. By the way, for Apple Mac users, you can use Command and down arrow. So I went Command down arrow, and notice it brought me to row 1606, and right beneath that is a blank cell. And our instructions ask us to enter some information, which happens to be September 1st, 2012. All right, let's look to see if there's any other blank cells. I'm going to continue from this point, hit Control down arrow. And once again, on row 2241, I found another blank cell. So I will put in the recommended date. All right, and I'm going to just copy that just to see if there's any other blank cells. So I'll go down again. All right, so on row 2498, I have another missing date, and let's look for one more. 2693, put in the missing date, and let's see if there's another one. So I got all the way down to 2999, and there is no blanks left. And let's go back to the top, and there is no blanks left. So I filled in roughly 4 blank date column fields with 9/1/2012. The other thing we want to make sure of is that this date column is formatted properly. We can see up here in this area that it is set at date. If we wanted to make sure that it was a date, we could see that this is month, day, year. But if we needed to, we can either change it up here or go to the number and look for the date and find the respective date. Now, in this case, we do want a 4-digit year, and we're going to leave that alone. So I'm just going to select cancel. All right, so starting with column K, we're going to add some new columns. And what's really good about tables in Excel is that when you start typing column names, it automatically adds them to the column as long as those columns are adjacent to your table. So we need total underscore sales. We need total underscore cost. And the other one we're going to add is total underscore profit. Now, also, I just noticed that I have this queries and connections field on the right. I'm just going to X out of that for the moment, and I'm going to zoom in a little so that way I can show you guys what I'm doing in these 3 fields. All right, let's see here. All right, I am first going to select these 3 rows and just expand them out a little bit. Now, total sales is nothing more than price times the number of items sold. And we want to relate this to this particular table. So I'm just going to type in equal. I'm going to go find the price column, which is column F. So I'm going to say price, put the multiplier times sold, and that is the item sold. Now I'm going to format all of this to be currency, and we're going to make sure it's the accounting format. Let's do the same thing for cost. So cost is actually the unit cost times the number of items sold. And once again, I'm going to select all the items and then confirm that is in the accounting format. Now, by the way, how I'm selecting all these cells in this column is by holding down both the Control and Shift key at the same time and then using my down arrow option. So I do Control plus Shift, keeping them both down, and then hit down arrow, and that selects all those fields. All right, so total profit is equal to the total sales minus the total cost. And because the other fields are already in accounting format, we don't need to format those. So that gets us through step 3. All right, so we have to add some basic time dimension information, and we want to add the month, day, year, and quarter. And now this information is not easily accessible just through the date column, which is right here in column I. And so in order to be able to have just a month number, we have to put in a function that will just give us that month number. And in this case, it is month times the date column right? And we're going to just close that off. And for simplicity, I'm actually going to select date. I'm going to hit Command or Control C to put that in my clipboard. And you're going to see what I'm going to do with that. So I hit enter. Those are the month numbers. So I'm going to say equal to for day. I'm going to use day as the function. I'm going to put at date. I just hit Command V because I copied it from before. So that is the date. And year is also year and at date. And we're going to go ahead and put the date. So all that information is being extracted from this field. Now, the one that is most challenging is the quarter field. So let's take a look at how we're going to do this. And we have to use a small formula that is going to have nested functions within it. Okay, and let me give it to you right here. It is also listed in our instructions. It is roundup. And the number that we want to put in there is going to be based on the month function. And we want to use that date column. And we are going to take that month and divide it by 3. And we're now in that roundup function. And we want to round it up by 0 digits and close it off. Now, you have to take a look at what's happening here. So this right here is the nested function, and we are dividing it by 3. And once it's divided by 3, we're going to round it up to 0. And that will give us a whole number, which in this case will only range from 1 to 4. So let's go ahead and hit enter, and we can see that what we have now as a result is the numerical equivalent for the quarter of the year. So that is a very common formula for quarter. I am going to look at all my data, make sure everything is in that format. We can see that it is a table object, so we're in good shape. All right, I'm going to make sure that I hit save on my worksheet, and I'm going to go to the next step, which is step 5. And now we're going to start dealing with descriptive analytics. I want to rename this sheet. This is going to be called now descriptives. All right. And we want to put some descriptives here in each of these cells. So now, because we have a table, we want to make sure that when we enter formulas into these cells, we make use of our referencing of those particular tables, or in other words, a structured reference. Let me show you what I mean. So for mean, we know that function we're going to use is average. We have our transactions table, and we want the data, we want the average from the price column. So that right there is a structured reference. Now I'm going to use this structured reference a couple of times. So I'm going to hit Control C or Command C to put that in my clipboard. And let's go to the next one. So median equals median. And I'm going to want transactions price. Next is standard deviation. And I want to make sure I use standard deviation of the sample. And let's go ahead and of transactions price. This is equal to min transactions price. This is equal to max of the transactions price. And the range is actually equal to the max minus the min. Okay, these are basic statistical measures. The count is equal to count of that price column. And finally, the sum is equal to the sum of that price column. Now, everything should be formatted in the numerical aspect that we have. All right, so if there's any edits that need to be had, make sure that we have a proper accounting formulas or accounting formats where appropriate. And notice count does not have a $sign because count is not currency. It is actually integer. All right. So now we want to do the same thing for sold, unit cost, sales, etc. Now I'm going to show you a little trick. In the data transaction, we'll notice that the price column is adjacent to the sold column, which is adjacent to the unit cost column. So coming over here, I can take this function, and since those rows are, or columns are adjacent, I can actually copy and paste them left to right. Now, if you look at the formula in here, it actually changes to sold for the sold value, and then unit cost for the unit cost value. Now, if I did that one more time, you'll notice that now my formula is looking at date. And the reason is that what's adjacent to unit cost is date. And what's adjacent to date is store name. So what I need to do is make some changes in this particular field. And I am going to just simply, I'm going to do a find replace for date, and I'm going to replace it with the column that I want. And the column that I want is total sales. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to do, I'll come up here to my home tab. I'm going to go to find and hit replace. I want to find date and replace it with total underscore sales. And I'm going to replace it. And I got 7 replacements. I'm going to hit close. And now let's look at those formulas. We have now average total sales. And if we look at the next one, again, median total sales. Now I can use that adjacency option and bring it left to right, because total sales, total cost, and total profits are all adjacent to one another. All right, so that was the easy way of getting those particular fields in together. If that doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. You can do those manually. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to expand this out, and I'm going to expand this out in this manner so you can pause the video and see what functions and formulas I have in each respective cell. All right, so feel free to pause it right here. Perhaps I can zoom in just a hair more. I notice this one's getting cut out. There we go. All right, so go for it. And I'm going to go ahead and continue. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to undo all that stuff. And where is, no, let's, there we go. All right. Now, if you'll notice in our spreadsheet, we have a value here in sold where it looks like we're too shy of meeting 3,000, 2 values shy. And the reason for that is if we come back to our data transactions, and if we look at the sold column, and remember how I had you search for empty spaces, I'm going to hit Control down arrow, and if I look, there is an empty space on row 94 for the spreadsheet, ID number 92, and it has to do with this pepperoni. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to copy these values, and I'm going to go back to the descriptives, and I'm going to paste values. So I'm just going to come up here, paste values only. And I know that these two have issues. All right, so I'm going to go look for the other one. Okay, so I'm going to put my cursor right here, hit Control down arrow, and look for that blank. And my next one that has a problem are these two. So I'm going to copy those, go back to descriptives, select right here, and paste values. And now I have those values. Now what we want to do is that these particular inventory item numbers, so 7309 and 1622, right? So here's 1622. 1622 corresponds to regular roast beef double, and it has a typical cost and et cetera, et cetera. What we want to do is right here, we want to impute a value that is an averaged based on this inventory number. And here's how we're going to do that. We're going to use this function. It's going to be average if, and we want to average the transactions. We're going to look at specifically the inventory number. So remember, when we use average if, we want to first look in the range of cells that match our criteria. And in this case, I want to look for all items that are inventory 7309. So that's going to be in the inventory number column. I'm going to hit comma. Now I want to select what my criteria is going to be, and that criteria is going to exist right here. So now I want to figure out, what do I want to average? What I want to average is in the transactions column, but this time I want it to be sold. So I will close that off and I get a value of 3.26 for item 7309 on 92. So first, let me go find that row 92. Let me come back up here, and here it is. All right, so just to confirm, this is row 92. This is the value that I need to have a imputed value for, and that value that I'm going to impute is 3.26. So I'm going to put 3.26 right here. And if I did that correctly, this number will not change, because when you input an average, all it does is strengthen it, or into a selection value, it will only strengthen basically upon the average. All right, let's do the same thing down here for item number 1622. And because this formula that I created is a relative reference, all I need to do is copy that and put it right here. And so for 1622, I need to put 1.43. So I will come back here, look for that empty value, and put 1.43. All right, I'm going to go back home, hit save, hit descriptives, and again, now that has not changed. And now what has changed is this. Notice that now I have complete values for all of my data. So one of the things that you should learn from this exercise is that descriptive statistics allows you to evaluate your data set, no matter how big or how small, and determine if there's missing values, if there's kind of anomalies. So it allows you to explore it even though that you're not looking at all of the data. Now, one of the things about this descriptive statistics worksheet is you have to prepare it for printing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the page layout view. I want to first set the orientation to landscape. I want to adjust the width to one page, so that way it will always fit on one page no matter what. And now I want to go ahead and put a custom footer in. So I'm going to go to page setup. I'm going to go to header footer, select on custom footer. And in the left, we want to put the file name. So I'm going to select left section, select on what is now insert file name. In the center, I want to go page/pages. So it's page/pages. And in the right section, I want to put the tab or the worksheet name. All right. And these are always going to be updated if things change, right? So this is very helpful with creating these custom footers, because it's updatable if the workbook changes. So I will hit OK. And I'm going to select print preview. And you can see how everything fits on one page, and I have my footers in the appropriate place. So I will go back, I will save my document, and that should complete this assignment for project part 1A.